Hello, everyone. This is a live, and I'm going to be teaching you what really goes on in the disabled world. That is, the people's IQs that are lower than 77. The IQs for an average person is around 77 and higher. On the lower spectrum is the ones who barely hit the borderline of disability and average. So we're going to take a look today on what the world is actually doing to the disabled people, the real minorities, the real ones who get overlooked, the ones who are not seen as normal, as anything but nothing. Between putting us into hospitals or whatever, thrown away because we are not average people. In reality, we get so much worse than what is thought to be going through. And we have to constantly fight every day. So what I'm going to do is pin this as well as keeping an eye on the time because we're waiting for this to come up, and then I'll mute my mic so you guys can listen and see what really goes on in this world that is hidden from everyone. And it's quite sad. It's quite sad that it's hidden. And not a lot of people know what's really going on. And we have to fight for the lower people. We have to act upon what is really right. I don't care if I don't get anybody in here. I could care less. But this needs to be known. This will only be for an hour, people. At least a little bit over. When this goes off, this live will end. So all we do now is wait. And I will also be putting a link in the lower thing for you all to see. what this entails.
Hello, everyone. On behalf of the California Association of Post-Secondary Education and Disability, we want to welcome you to today's student teach-in. We are going to get started in just a couple minutes as more folks are joining. Before we get started, I did want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. And that is, we do have an ASL interpreter today. So if you're wanting to utilize those services, please make sure that you pin the interpreter on your end. And we also have real-time closed captioner. So if you'd like the captions to be shown on your side, you can click the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom screen to enable the captionings to show up. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our CAPED President-elect, Dr. Adina Rutland.
Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Adina Rutland. I am the Director of the Student Accessibility Services at San Jose City College. I am also the CAPED President-elect. We are very excited to offer this webinar for you so you can learn more about this very important lawsuit that is happening right now. It's important for disability rights. It is important that you are fully aware of what is happening and you can fight it if it is needed. We are very excited to have students joining this webinar. Your voice is very important. They are fighting for you. You are the future, you are the present, and you are the future. We want to make sure that your rights are always satisfied, and we want to make sure that we are hearing specifically from you. We want to make sure you are getting involved with CAPED too. CAPED, the California Association for Post-Secondary Education and Disabilities, really focusing on students with disabilities all over California, community colleges, as well as universities. They are here to represent your rights. It's very important for us that we hear from you, the students. I myself, I am profoundly deaf. I went through the system myself. I understand it is a challenge to go through the education system when you have a disability, but it shouldn't be. We want to make sure we are fighting for you and we are providing the services that you need. And not only that you need, this is your right to get the services that help you succeed in your classes. We are very excited to have one amazing expert here with us providing this presentation. Thank you so much, Paul Grossman, for joining us and providing this webinar. I could spend hours to explain his background, how much he has been doing for students with disabilities. He has a long list of accolades. I could add, he's a retired lawyer. He is executive counsel for HELD, the National Organization for Students with Disabilities. He has been working very closely with KPED, providing a lot of wonderful legal advice. So he's here today to explain to us what is happening with this lawsuit. Thank you so much, Paul, for joining. The platform is yours.
Thank you very much, Adina. And thank you all for attending this very, very important teach-in. So my name is Paul Grossman. I'm an individual with multiple disabilities. I've had some of them my whole life. I started with U.S. Department of Education Office for Civil Rights almost 50 years ago, doing school desegregation cases in the South. And then
Recording in progress.
And then cases on behalf of Hispanic and Latino students in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, and then cases on behalf of females in competitive college sports, and finally, the issue of disability rights. So for me, I never see an issue as just a disability rights issue or just a race issue. They are all civil rights issues. And sadly and unfortunately, a crisis has been created by your community college district and upon really everyone's civil rights, but most immediately upon disability rights. And I'm going to explain to you this morning, hopefully succinctly, what this crisis is and why it matters to you. So in my opinion, this is the most serious matter in disability rights in 20 years. It's here, it's at LACCD, and it's now. But please understand, this will have an impact across the entire country, across everyone's disability rights, not just in education. And ultimately, I fear the damage that could be done by LACCD in this matter can spread to other civil rights matters as well. And because I see this as a universal matter, I'm going to urge you throughout this presentation, we need to organize to get support from every group on campus. If there's a Hispanic organization, if there's a Latin organization, if there's an African-American organization, if there's a women's rights organization, we need everyone's support. We have this old saying in civil rights, but it's true. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. And I know I'm an old man, and I hope I haven't lost complete credibility for the fact that I'm a grandfather. But it is time for a new generation of disability and civil rights leaders to step forward. And I come today to pass that torch to you. I come today to get you onto that road. So one of my goals today is to make you constructively as angry as hell. I want you so angry that you won't take it anymore. I want you so angry that you will protect and assert your disability rights and ally to protect everyone's civil rights. And yeah, as a grandparent, I also want you so angry that you will study as hard as possible, because I need you all to take on positions of power in our society so we can change and address the inequities that still exist in our society. But a word of caution, please don't shoot your allies. I work with disabled student services officers throughout the California community college system. And I know sometimes you're disappointed in them, but I need to point out, they work hard, They're not particularly well paid. They don't set their budgets. They can't discipline faculty. And they need your support right now to fight your real problems. So we're going to get to Payan and Mason and the NFB, that's the National Federation of the Blind, versus LACCD in a moment. But I need first to give you just a little foundation. So building on civil rights traditions of people of color in the courts and in social movements on the street, people with disabilities have their own proud civil rights history. I think faculty and administrators sometimes think we were handed our civil rights on a silver platter, and that's just not true. We had to risk our lives just like every other civil rights movement in America. And I have here a picture which I will describe. It's of an old federal building. It happens to actually be in San Francisco, where the United Nations Charter was first written and signed. And in that building, there were officials from the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, which refused to issue the regulations protecting people with disabilities. And in 1977, 250 individuals with disabilities gathered at 50 United Nations Plaza to hear speeches urging that those regulations be issued. And if you can see this picture, and I'll describe it for you, this is not the March of LD Mothers. These are people in wheelchairs, in power chairs, with canes, deaf individuals, hard of hearing individuals. And many of them were medically fragile. And after that demonstration, they actually took over that building. And what you need to understand is these were people who had to be catheterized or they would die, have to be fed through tubes or suctioned, and they would die. And they risked their lives, 100 of them, occupying that building for 26 days, the longest occupation of a federal building by any civil rights group, in order to secure our civil rights as people with disabilities. And we had to learn a lesson before we could move forward and gain our first goal. And that is that the disability community is one diverse group of people. I'm not sure the LACCD Board of Trustees quite understands this yet, but we are a community of people of color, of every sexual orientation, of every age, of every religion. And we're quite diverse with regard to disability as well. People with speech impairments may have very different issues than people who are deaf or people who are blind. And yet, under the leadership of Judy Heumann, for those of you who saw the movie Crip Camp, and if you haven't, I really want to recommend it. It's free. She had to weld together all those different groups and teach us all to be patient and supportive of one another as one big, diverse unity. And then we had to fight for the ADA. And I show you here a picture, and again, I'll describe it. It's people on the stairs of the US Capitol. 1990 was totally inaccessible to people with disabilities. I guess they thought we didn't have anything of value to say. We had no interests that needed to be addressed. Our voice didn't matter. And so for one very long, hot day, people with mobility impairments got to the base of the Capitol, threw away their crutches, took off their braces, and crawled step by step in front of news cameras up the stairs. And it worked. Along with lots of other lobbying activities, in less than 4 months, we got the ADA. Your faculty and your administrators, and I've heard your chancellor with great persuasive powers talk about the value of diversity with great eloquence. But what about us? We have our own inclusive, diverse culture. We have our own literature and art. We have our own history and civil rights battles. We have our own challenges and hardships. We are forced into segregate as a community. This is all wrong. And if we're going to talk about diversity, we need to be included. And I'll just give you one example. I think you're probably all familiar with the very gifted Mexican-American artist, Frida Kahlo. And when they talk about Frida, they talk about her art. They talk about her as a very determined woman. They talk about her somewhat famous love life. But never have I heard anyone point out the fact that Frida was an individual with post-polio syndrome. Frida was run over by a streetcar in Mexico City. And when you look at Frida's art, it's full of her references to her disabilities. But in your school, there's no mention of that fact. That has to stop. Our culture is important to contribute just like everybody else's. So why all the attention to this case, Payan and Mason versus LACCD? Because the Payan case teaches us that if we don't fight for our civil rights, they will disappear. And your own board of trustees is currently on course to take them away, to damage them, to destroy some of them. So a personal note here, in school, I was very bad in sports. I was the last kid picked for a team. I was really short. I was uncoordinated. And I didn't do very well in the classroom. And frankly, I didn't get much respect. I was one angry kid. You can still hear that anger. I don't take it out on my kids, but I do take it out on politicians. I had plenty of what sociologists call fire in my belly. But in law school, everything changed because I learned that defending justice is a martial art, a sport. And even though I was a slow reader and writer, if I got in touch with my anger, I could make pretty darn convincing arguments and defend and protect my clients very well. So I'm not a huge sports fan, but I'm gonna try a sports analogy because I think it's instructive. So let's take football. Y'all are in LA, it's the right analogy to make. Football, like every sport, has rules. There are 3 ways to score in football: the touchdown, the field goal, and the conversion. And as clever or as original as it might be, you cannot score by kicking a ball from the stands on the wrong side of the goalpost. It doesn't count. It won't get you anywhere. Well, the same is true in the law. There are rules that courts and precedents set up, and you have to stay within those rules. And there are different rules for different areas of the law. The rules for car crashes, for example, are very different than the rules from civil rights, but both areas have rules. So there are 3 ways to score in disability discrimination court cases. The first one is intentional discrimination. So let's say you think your teacher graded you down just because your teacher knows you're deaf or blind. That's an expression of hatred or bias by the teacher against you because you're an individual with a disability, and that's intentional discrimination. It goes on, but I wouldn't say it's the primary tool or primary claim. The primary claim pertains to a denial of or a failure to implement a reasonable accommodation. It's the most common form of claim. It's individual by individual. So let's say that you go to DSS and you want an accommodation, DSS authorizes it, and then you go to the classroom and the teacher says, "Over my dead body." It's a fundamental alteration. It's an undue burden. And you're clear it's not. Well, then you might need to get a lawyer or file a complaint with the Office for Civil Rights or the Justice Department. But your claim is you've been denied a reasonable accommodation that is neither a fundamental alteration nor an undue burden. The school promised to implement it, but it failed in that promise. But the most powerful tool is disparate impact. And disparate impact addresses institutional systemic problems, whether they are intentional or not. So I'll give you some examples. Let's say that the school has a website for course registration. They didn't build that website purposefully to discriminate against plaintiffs like Payan, blind students, but that's what happens because Payan depends upon adaptive technology to read what's on the screen since he can't see it with his own eyes. And if you code wrong, he can't use that tool. Or maybe you have academic software like MyMathLab, which really made Payon's life miserable. And it wasn't purchased for the purpose of excluding blind students, but because no thought was given to whether it would be accessible, people like Payon can't use it. Maybe a more obvious example, the school builds a new student, but there are no elevators. Again, this isn't to the effect. So the intent is not an essential element. The real issue here is to address ignorance, thoughtless indifference, and benign neglect. And depending upon the circumstances of your claim, each of these three tools matters a great deal. We need them all. Our rights are kind of like on a three-legged stool, and damn it, if you pull out one of those legs, it's going to fall over. And I'll give you a hypothetical that illustrates my point. Being a law school teacher, I love hypotheticals. So let's say a blind student wants to register for classes online, which at the time is the only practical way to do so. And the student quickly realizes that the website for course registration is not available for him to use his adaptive technology. So he could go to DSS, and maybe DSS, understanding the problem, can say to the student, well, we have a work study student, and the work study student, just call him and he'll read the entire course offering over the phone. And about 2 months later, when the student's through reading all those options orally, it's too late for the blind student to register. All the good classes are taken. Reasonable accommodation is not a useful, effective tool, is it? Not in this circumstance. What you need to use is disparate impact to get the registration system replaced or fixed so that no more students who are blind ever need to go to DSS for help. They can independently register 24/7, just like every other student. So why is this a crisis? What's the just cause we must organize and fight for now? In Payon and Mason, LACCD is threatening to ask the US Supreme Court to eliminate the disparate impact tool, the one tool that is effective in protecting our institutional and systemic rights. So just a little review of the case. Payon and Mason are two blind students, and they allege that LACCD failed to give them the opportunity to receive the same information as all other students because, they alleged, LACCD failed to translate at all or on a timely basis inaccessible classroom materials, books, syllabi, handouts, homework assignments, academic software. They just didn't either get them at all or they didn't get them on a timely basis. And with a few notable exceptions, LACCD has lost at every single stage of this matter. In the district courts, the LACCD tried to persuade the district court to just dismiss the case. That didn't work. Then they went to what's called a bench trial, where they put on their evidence in front of a judge, and that didn't work. And then they went to a jury trial because Mr. Payon alleged that the discrimination against him was so gross that he was entitled to financial damages, and he won. And I have to tell you, in the many, many years I've been reading disability cases, very few people get financial damages, but Payon was awarded $40,000. So what did the district do? It went to the Ninth Circuit, the appellate court, and told it, oh, tell the district court it got it wrong. Well, actually, they did tell the district court they got it wrong, but not in the way LACCD wanted. In fact, the Ninth Circuit said the district court had made it too hard on the plaintiffs and it needed to go back for more trial to give the plaintiffs more opportunity to prove their claims. So we say in the law, if you can't win on the facts, argue the law. If you can't win on the law or the facts, you got to change the law. You got to change the rule of the game. And now I'm going to go back to my football analogy for the last time. Excuse me, my throat is very dry. Let's say your team has a really poor passing game. and you want to try to get the rules changed so that you can no longer pass the football across the goal line. You can only run it. Well, for some teams, that would be an advantage, but it would be an unjust, unfair, inappropriate, game-destroying change. And thank God, football teams don't do that. But there is a real threat that LACCD is trying to destroy the game for us. There was a case, CVS versus Doe, in which CVS, the drugstore, tried to persuade the Supreme Court of the United States that disparate impact is no longer a viable tool. And fortunately, the disability community went to CVS and told them, if you want our support, if you want us as customers, you're going to have to drop this claim. And that's exactly what CVS did. We organized, we can make a difference. Don't think you just have to be a lawyer. To the contrary, it wasn't the lawyers who prevailed here. It was the organizers, it was the advocates, it was the people with fire in their belly. Well, the problem is CVS, what happened, has signaled that the Supreme Court of the United States is very interested in hearing this issue. And many legal scholars, myself included, fear that the reason the Supreme Court wants to hear the issue is it wants to rule in favor of what CVS wanted and what LACC wants now. And I need you to understand, if we lose, it will affect every aspect of our life: medical care, facilities access, shopping, entertainment, dining, transit. And indeed, it could even spill over to have an adverse effect on Title IX, the sex discrimination law, or on the Fair Housing Act, which is very important because it affects everybody who has student housing or dorms. And I've heard a really ugly rumor that many other colleges and universities are calling LACCD and encouraging it to keep up the fight. This is not good. In overwhelming numbers and with relentless advocacy, you must persuade LACCD to abandon this tactic immediately. Tell them, don't bargain with our civil rights. Honor them now. Outside agitators, that's me. Outside agitators like me, the faculty of goodwill, administrators of goodwill, have all failed to persuade the LACCD Board of Trustees to do the right thing. And frankly, you, the students, are the last, best, only remaining hope. Tell the board it has chosen an illegitimate strategy and it must be dropped now. The board may be receiving savvy legal advice. You know, attorneys have to tell their clients, this is like the most powerful thing you can do. But that doesn't mean it's the most ethical, moral, or democratic thing to do. The board may have to be brave and act like leaders and tell their attorneys, thank you for your advice. We'd like to know what our second best option is, but this option, we're not going to take it. The district, after all, has a duty to represent everyone, and that includes faculty and students with disabilities. It includes the people of color and women whose rights are ultimately also possibly in jeopardy. It certainly includes the disability community that is taxed to support it. And I need to tell you, LACCD receives many, many millions of dollars from the federal government on the condition that it will provide people like Payan and Mason their rights and services. And now it's given the federal government the finger. Keeping open the option to go to the Supreme Court while in mediation might sound to the board like it's a compromise, because if in mediation things settle, well, then we'll never make the argument before the Supreme Court. Isn't that reasonable? No, it's not. Our rights are our rights. They don't belong to LACCD. And to dangle our rights over the NFB to try to threaten them. Well, if you don't settle with us cheap, we're going to take away your most fundamental civil rights. That's not right. They're our rights. Tell the board, I'm not loaning you my car. I'm not loaning you my dorm room. I'm not loaning you my rights. They're mine, and you cannot bargain with them. I've heard the chancellor be so eloquent about this. We not only have to teach our students, we have to tell our students they matter. We have to demonstrate that they matter. Well, if students with disabilities matter, you can't then take away their rights. You can't educate them and tomorrow tell them, oh, go out into the world of work where you no longer have any rights because we took them away. Congratulations on your degree or your certificate. Congratulations to going on further in your education. But we're not going to give you your rights. That just isn't going to work. It may not even be in the district's monetary interest to continue this battle. And I know money shouldn't be the deciding thing, but I worry that it is. And I've tried to explain to the board on a couple of occasions, if you go to the Supreme Court, you're taking a crap shot. And I don't know what the odds are, 50-50. But if you lose those huge legal bills from the NFB that you don't want to pay now, they're only going to get much bigger. Settle. If you must, go back to the district court like the Ninth Circuit is saying and make the students prove their case more. But don't go to the Supreme Court and endanger our rights. So I'm really at my wit's end here because I have done my very, very best to organize, to persuade, to write, and I'm just not getting it done. You all need to speak up and build alliances and join forces with all the other civil rights or affinity groups that are on your campuses and demand justice. And I heard yesterday very, very eloquent words from your student representative on the LACCD board. And it gives me hope and faith that you all can take over this fight and can win it. And now I'm going to turn the table over to my dear friend Bree Kennedy, who's going to make some suggestions about what might be your next steps. And her suggestions are good. I recommend you follow them, but you may also have some good, original, persuasive ideas of your own, and I'd love to see those as well. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Paul, for your continued efforts in advocacy and taking this fight on. I'm going to just go over a few slides here, everyone. My name is Bree Kennedy, and I am a member of CAPED, and I'm also a DSPS director at San Diego City College. I wanted to just leave everyone, now that Paul's got us fired up and angry as hell, right? I want to leave us with some tangible next steps that we can take. And when I say we, you as students, Paul mentioned, there's been advocates and faculty and directors that have been taking this on as well, but we wanted you to join us because truly your voice, the student voice, is the strongest, most powerful voice in the boardroom. Paul gave us this disability rights history lesson a little bit, and one of the famous slogans that were coined throughout some of the disability rights activism was this term, nothing about us without us. And it's later also been modified to now just be nothing without us. And what this means is that no decisions, especially when they're affecting our rights and civil rights, should be made without us, without our voice at the table. And so we're asking you to join us and come to the table with us. Let's see the next slide here. If I can make my thing. Hold on a second. Technical.
Bree, put your cursor on the slide and click, and then try it.
There we go. Had to move the clip. Perfect. So the action steps. So we have 4 immediate action steps for you to take. One is to email the LACCD Board of Trustees individually. And we have a deadline for when we want to do that. And again, we're going to help you with this. So we want to make sure that you're plugged in and connected to our email list so we can help you with these action steps. The second one is going to be to submit written comments to the LACCD Board of Trustees. And that's by March 1st, because the next board meeting is on March 2nd. So that's where we have these kind of timelines that we've laid out for you. Again, we're going to help you with formulating some of these comments. And then really the most important step is that board meeting that's on March 2nd. We're hopeful that they will have made a decision prior to that to change their mind in the direction they're going with this case, but we can't bank on that. So we have to be ready and to show up virtually to that board meeting to make public comments there. And then lastly, we are going to launch a social media campaign the week leading up to the board meeting as well. So those are 4 next steps that we really hope that you partner with us. We recognize that there's students here from LACCD, that there's also the students from across the state, other colleges and universities, and supporters of students. And so the reality is the student voice is the strongest, but there's room for everyone to join us and participate. And we're hoping that you will do that. What is really important as we take these next steps is that we are united in our and have a clear and unified message that we're giving to the board. So kind of wanted to outline a little bit about what that message, the messaging will look like. And the most important one is that we have a very clear action that we're asking the board to do. Paul illuminated that a little bit in his presentation, but the LACCD Board of Trustees needs to withdraw its intention to file for cert now, today, and that they must take action. That's what we're asking them to do. We also need to highlight the global impact that if they do not do that, what that will have and what that will mean in setting precedents for disability discrimination and exclusion to be acceptable, eliminating those important tools that we have to fight disability discrimination. And so making sure that they understand the global impact. The other thing that's important in our messaging is that they understand the local impact, the impact to the LACCD specifically, and what their messaging is by taking the actions that they're currently taking. It implies that students with disabilities do not matter. Regardless of what they say, the actions, as we've heard, the cliche term, actions speak louder than words, right? So the local impact is important that they hear what that means and what that is on their students and potential students. That disabled students don't belong at LACCD, that money is more important than social justice, right? Another thing that's important in this messaging is that they hear from you the personal impact, your personal story, who you are, how this makes you feel, right? So we'll want to make sure that we include that. We also want to make sure that we underscore the hypocrisy that's happening with LACCD saying that they value these things on this hand, but on the other hand, they're ready to take the rights of people with disabilities away. They can't say that they care about and that they're listening, but then their actions are saying otherwise. So we want to underscore and emphasize that as part of our messaging. And then lastly, I talked a little bit about the board meeting on March 2nd. We really need everyone to show up. There was amazing advocates and students that spoke last night. I think there was about 5 or 6 total people that spoke on this subject last night. There's been other folks that have spoke previously. On March 2nd, we need everyone to show up. Students, parents, professionals, advocates, accomplices, everyone. And again, we want to partner with you and help equip you. Because I know for me, when I first spoke out at my first board meeting, I was like, I don't know what to say, or I'm not quite sure what to do, but we want to help you with that. And just reminding you that you, the student's voice, are the most equipped and the most important voice. Decca just put in the chat a link to sign up to get more information. I know some of you filled out this link as you heard about this event. So I'm really grateful for all of the information and the emails that I've gotten to date. If you have not filled out this link, please do so that we have your information and we can equip you with the tools to take those next steps with us. Also, we're going to be doing a couple drawings for Amazon gift cards from the folks that are participating, because we recognize that this takes time away from your very busy schedules as students and parents and all the different roles that you hold. So we're going to have some drawings as well. But that's how you will get the information that was shared today on the slides. And also the next slide I'm going to show here has some additional information and resources. I got some personal chats throughout the meeting today about access to some of the recordings, the podcasts, and other things. So we will include all of this information in a follow-up email following today. We just need to make sure we have your information. So please fill out that link, or you can also leave it in the chat as well.
And Bree, I'm going to add to your link my personal email address, so people are welcome to contact me. I'm going to include the link to the petition by the Disability Rights Education Defense Fund to the LACCD. That petition now has 9,100 signatures. I think they were expecting about 200, but we got to get to 10,000. I mean, you know, we got to get a story in the LA Times, maybe getting to 10,000 will get us there. And I'm going to commit to this. I think the board has heard as much from me as they want to or need to, but if I don't have a legal conflict, I will be there to go to that board meeting as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Paul, for that, and all of the resources and your personal information too. All right, so it is now 12:40, and so we have time to, and for the most important element of today, of course, we wanted you to understand the importance and kind of the implications for what this case means for the disability community and others and beyond. But now we want to hear from you if you have any questions, comments, or ideas. This recording will be shared. I see a few questions in the chat. So we can go ahead, and if you have a question, you can put it in the chat or use the raise hand feature and we will call on you. So I do see that Craig has had his hand up for a while. Thank you, Craig, for being patient. So let's go ahead and start with Craig. You may unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Am I being heard? Okay, great. Okay, I'm William Craig, and I'm a volunteer as the president of the Disabled Students Club at Valley College. And I just want you guys to know what the LACCD is doing is totally conflicting with what we're trying to do to encourage people challenged with disabilities to get back in school and enhance their ability. So we're not recognized by what we can't do, we're recognized by what we can do. And we're doing a Focus on Ability campaign, and there's over 900,000 disabled adults in LA County alone. And our objective was to do an outreach and recruitment to the disabled, but with the LACCD acting this way, it may not look as safe of a haven as we're making it out to be. So we're going to do everything we can as a club to hopefully encourage the LACCD to abandon this action, because it's going to do them more harm than good.
Thank you so much for that. And your context, being an LACCD student leader, is really important for all of us here today to hear. And thank you for also speaking out at the board meeting, and just know that we're here with you and we want to support you. And that message is very important. Thank you. It
is. And the students here are willing to do whatever it takes to make sure we don't get robbed of our rights. We have enough to deal with. Other than dealing with academic pursuit challenges. You know, we have transportation challenges, relationship challenges, financial challenges. And we're trying to go from being looked at as deficits in the community to being looked at as assets. And Valley College has been a very big asset for me. I was able to use the Writer Center here to edit a book that I had published recently. And it saved me hundreds of dollars to hire an editor.
Well, thank you so much. Next comment we have from C. Shelby. You may unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Colleen Shelby. I'm a reporter with the LA Times, and to Paul's question earlier, I am going to be planning to write about this. I did have a question just in regards to whether there have been any sort of accommodations met during this entire case. It's my understanding that there has not been any sort of change, and I'm curious if you had any thoughts on why that may be, why there has been no action to help accommodate students in the midst of the ongoing lawsuit.
Thank you so much for that question. Paul, I'm going to defer that question to you, my friend.
You know, LACCD represents that things are very different now, particularly in the math department, where much of this was centered than they were at the time of the suit. But I have no independent knowledge of whether that's true or not. And thank you so much for reporting on this story. And my suggestion would be that you talk to the plaintiff's lawyer. And if you need me to help you contact that individual, just email me. I know you have my email address. Just email me and I'll help create that connection for you.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you, Colleen, for being here. We appreciate it. The next one is Carla Figueroa.
Hello?
Hello, we hear you.
Oh, great. Oh my goodness. I have so much to say, and I just want to start with I'm in San Diego. I attend Palomar College. I received an email about this Zoom meeting, and I immediately contacted my professors and had to drop everything because this is something has affected, been discriminated against as a person with a disability, as a child with a disability. And just hearing what I've heard about this case, it just it is scary. It's scary to know that the LACCD is pushing this issue, and it's just really hitting close to home for me, because I've lived this in a different manner. And so my question to you also, Mr. Grossman, I'm just honored to hear your words, and I've followed your work for years, and I just want to know what I can do on my end in San Diego to help out.
Thank you for your question, Carla. And I think any number of us participants might be able to make some suggestions. But from my perspective, what's important about what you're raising is LACCD needs to understand this is a national issue.
Yes.
It will have a national impact. And they need to be hearing from campuses all over the country and all over the state in particular. This is not a moral, ethical, legitimate tactic to adopt. And if you have, for example, a Disabled Students Services Club, but also if you have a Hispanic, African American women's rights organizations, they all need to be telling LACCD, don't trample our civil rights. They were hard fought, they were hard won, and we need them. And I think the theme that I've heard from you all so far is, I need my civil rights, and you can't give them away, and they need to know that's the case.
Yes, we never gave them permission to make decisions on our lives.
Exactly.
So I will do my best in San Diego to spread the word. With every organization, with anybody that I can, because this is a disgrace, and we have to. We're a group that is on the sidelines, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. I really am, and I'm not going to allow it. And that's what I've and teaching my son as well, because the same thing has happened to him at school. I'm just going to do my very best, and I'm just so glad that I attended this meeting, and thank you for hearing me. So I'm going to carry the torch, Mr. Grossman.
Thank you so much, Carla. And I want to add a point about, as you say, we're on the sidelines. I listened to several hours of the LACCD meetings yesterday. Among the things they talked about was, how can we be more effective teachers? And I'm sure in their goal, they were authentic, but there was not one mention of universal design. All the things we've learned about what are better ways to teach that we learn from accommodating students with disabilities, and not one single person thought of that point. Then they had a meeting on housing, and I heard some very, very eloquent statements about housing insecurity and food insecurity for students. It's a terrible thing. But where was one single board member, one single person giving testimony about housing and people with disabilities? If people like you don't assert our interests, don't stand up for our rights, we're just going to be, as you say, ignored.
Yeah, that's not gonna
Thank you,
happen.
Carla.
Yes, yes. And also, in addition, just to, this also as a student has a why it's also affects your financial aid, everything. It affects everything. And it has impacted me so much that it's affected my life. And now just I have to be a part of this, and that's all I have to say. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank you so much, Carla. We have a
Thank
few
you.
other hands. I wanted to illuminate a couple of things that I'm seeing from the chat. There was a really great question about engaging college presidents. So some students have made great relationships with administrators on their campus. And so that's a very great idea. We need more administrators and more presidents to be aware of this issue and to be raising questions and concerns with their colleagues at LACCD. So we'll make sure to include that. So thank you for that idea. Also, there was a comment or an idea about because this is in LA, engaging celebrities, using celebrities and media platforms to amplify voices. So that's a really great strategy as well. And of course, working with local news. And we have our friends from the LA Times here as well. So thank you for those comments. Please do keep them coming. Next up, we have Kyrie.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I wanted to make the point that disabled people do not choose to be disabled. I haven't chosen to be as broken as I am, but what I am doing is I'm fighting for my life by going to this college, by taking the extra steps I need to take and work harder than people that aren't disabled. Because there are times when I get vertigo and I can't even see the computer. There are times when I get an ocular migraine and the whole everything's spinning. You know, I've broken my back. I've gone through so much that I can't even go to campus because I can't endanger other people with my disabilities. And the thing is if you saw me, you would not know at all. I look fine. And I've been discriminated against because of the way I look. I'm 50 years old, and you talked about, the fear of living and the fear of food and I have all of those as well. Now, I haven't had my disabilities all my life, but I have them now. And I am a student, and I am going to college. I'm going to continue to go to college. I'm active with DSPS. I'm also a student worker. I'm doing everything I can on my end to try to help students realize that there are options out there and choices that will help them academically. And, we use an immersive reader, and we do all the things that we have to do to try to help them be able to see the screens. And I call them and talk to them. And we all have to put in our part to make this, like you said, united, so that we can tell these people that, I'm not in a wheelchair, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm disabled, and I'm disabled on many levels. And I think that I'm not any less smart because I'm disabled. And so I should not be denied. There should be no denial of school for me because I have disabilities. Nobody should be denied an education. We're not stupid. We're injured or damaged, or something, happened, and it doesn't make us bad or wrong. And we deserve to have the same rights as people that are not disabled. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say. And I'm really glad that you are doing this. And I am in the desert, so I'm not in LA. However, I have people in LA that I'm obviously going to contact, and I'm going to talk to my advisors about this because this is a really very important issue. I'd like to be involved.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being here. And I do just want to underscore that even if you're not from the LACCD district, that your voice and your story is still critically important. As Paul mentioned, it has national implications. So you're all part of the solution. So we appreciate you. The next person we have up is, I apologize if I mispronounce, so please tell me the proper way. It's, let's see, Rifat. Is it Rifat Bilal?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, thank you very much, Professor Kennedy. I wanted to, basically, because I know there are other people up ahead of me, I wanted to go and I wanted to ask as concisely of a question as possible and make it short and to the point. Is I can't go and I'm an individual with a disability who went to Irvine Valley College, and I like I'm relatively like I might be considered like relatively high functioning because I have Asperger's, but I like if I can't go and fully grasp the magnitude of all this, then I can at the very least try to understand and accept the reality moving forward in order to safeguard our human rights. And I wanted to ask, because it says to email the LACCD board, and I do want to go and I do want to attend, I want to make a written comment and attend the public meeting, but I'm not able to see any link or any contact information in order to get in touch with them. Please.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. I had shortened my slides down a bit so that we could have more time for questions and comments, but all of that information, the contact information, the links, everything will be sent in a follow-up meeting so that you all have the exact next steps and who to contact and what actions to take. And then also just know that we're here to support you if you have any questions or anything as well. Thank you so much for your comments. Next, we have Christina Canarella.
Hi. Oh, sorry. I was trying to start the video, but that's okay. It's not letting me, but no worries. I just wanted to, so I'm a student at LA Valley College. And did you want to say hi? Did you want to say your name? Tell them who you are.
Hi, my name is Johnny.
My son, Johnny Hatch, is also a student at LA Valley College. And we spoke last night at the board meeting. And I just want to encourage, I have a couple comments and just two quick questions. The comments, first of all, thank you everybody for sharing. Carla, my heart goes out to you because I know how you feel. And I think a lot of people in our disability community might have heard about this, but they don't realize how important it is. Some people think, oh, that would never happen. The ADA would never change. It's happening. It's happening now. And we need every single person that we know, family members, friends, whether they have disabilities or not, to stand up and speak out and support our community. A couple ideas. One is the ASU, anybody who is a student within the community college system in California, they have the Associated Student Unions, the ASU Executive Council meetings, and the ASU Intercollegiate Council meetings, ASU ICC meetings. Go to those meetings, share the petition, let them know what's going on. So many students do not realize what is happening, and we need to get the word out there. Bring the link to the petition for them to sign and the information that was given to us today. Encourage them to have their voices heard. The other thing, if you know anyone who lives in Los Angeles, everybody who sits on the board of trustees, they're voted on. The board is a voted position. So when we vote in November, we vote for those positions. And we need to use that power as a constituent and let them know that we are holding them accountable for the choices that they're making. And they need to make the choices to support us in our disability rights. Also, I love the idea about graduates from about celebrities. There are many celebrities that are graduates from community colleges. I will reach out to some people that I know, but I think that's another way to get in touch with them and help them support this cause. Also, what we are trying to let them know, and I forgot to say this last night, but instead of wasting the millions of dollars that they would spend on attorney's fees to go forward to the Supreme Court, is to utilize that money to invest in productive solutions, such as a Department of Digital Accessibility or a Director of Digital Accessibility, to help create so this problem doesn't happen again. I do have just my two questions is, Mr. Grossman, first of all, thank you so much. I heard you last night. Thank you for just being a driving force to support our community.
But Christina, wait a minute. Yesterday night, you were the star. You were so credible and so persuasive. It's like I didn't need to testify because you made the best case. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Mr. Grossman. But to follow up what you said, again, we all have gifts to bring to the table. And I want everyone to know it doesn't matter. My son, Johnny, can't speak with words, but he wrote something on his iPad. It doesn't matter if you can't speak eloquently, if you can't write, just say, just show up and be there and say, this is who I am. I have a right, a human right and a civil right like everybody else does. And I want to, again, just encourage everybody to make sure people understand what Mr. Grossman had touched on. If disparate impact, if the Supreme Court were to rule in favor of changing the definition of what disparate impact would mean, which means if they changed it to only intentional discrimination, in Title IX, they use the same term, disparate impact. And just Title IX supports our gender rights, LGBTQ rights, people of color. This is not just a disability rights issue. If this goes to the Supreme Court and they vote in favor of the district, this will impact all marginalized and underrepresented communities. So thank you for your time. When is the due date that the district needs to decide upon? And also, isn't it our tax dollars that are being used for these attorneys' fees to some degree?
So first of all, yes, it is your tax dollars. And secondly, the absolute drop dead deadline for filing the motion for certiorari in the Supreme Court is March 3rd. And so March 2nd is really, really cutting it close. And so I hope that we will prevail upon the board before then, because it takes time to write that brief, right? And so somebody's working on it already, and they may have borrowed a brief from CVS, and they're changing it to fit their purpose. But really, we soon as humanly possible, because once the brief is written, it's kind of easier. Oh, let's just file it anyway, and we can always withdraw it, and that's just not going to work. We need to stop it in its tracks now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Christina and Paul both. Next up, we have Crimson Simpson.
Hi, I had a comment and a question. My question is, what are you doing and what's your idea for your social media campaign? Because I'm someone who has had learning disabilities my entire life. And for a long time, I thought I was alone, that no one else knew what I was going through. And it wasn't until high school that I realized there were other people like me. And so even though I don't have a huge social media following, a large part of that is to help make people feel like they aren't alone, that there are other people here, and that we do understand what we're going through, and that I want to empower people and embolden people to speak up, because I've had 3 learning disabilities my entire life, and one of them is in dyslexia. Yet now I am in college and I'm getting an English degree and I'm working towards publishing a book. And so like a large part of this just so shocked me when I saw the email, because like this is attacking us. This is attacking us. This is attacking me. And this is so important for us because we need this. And it's a large part of our life. And so I just wanted to like ask you, what are your plans for your social media campaign?
Yeah, thank you so much, Crimson, for sharing and for speaking out. And the truth is for the social media campaign, we're still working on developing it, but creating content and posts for folks to share, and also to tag the LACCD as well. But in terms of your comment about, your story and sharing your story and that feeling of like we belong and we're not alone. One of the reasons CAPED is very excited about sponsoring this event is because one of the goals of CAPED is to be more intentional with engaging students and student voice and student leaders to be able to share those messages to other students. So I'd love to follow up with you following this to kind of get more ideas from you. And then we'll be sending the information out about the social media posts pertaining to this shortly as well. So thank you. And then let's see, we have one more question, and that's from Trevor. And then I'll close with the final comments that have been put in the chat.
Hello. I just wanted to say thank you. I wanted to mention, especially for the reporter that's here, that I am at a community college up in Sacramento. I got this email and I completely resonate that it is shocking and scary. I have lost enough years of my life trying to figure out and deal with my disability, and I'm finally getting on top of school again. I'm doing great in my classes. I deserve to be in my classes. The accommodations I get really are the bare minimum, and I deserve to get those. And any precedent, as you mentioned, that is going to bleed into every other aspect of our life is just absolutely horrifying. So I will do what I can to share the word to my professors, to my fellow students, to my different support clubs and everything on campus. I will light them up with this knowledge. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you so much, Trevor, for your comment, and truly everyone for being here today. Again, we recognize you have busy schedules, lots to do, and you took time to prioritize this very important thing. So we're so grateful that you're here. And just one last plug to please make sure you fill out that form that Decca has been putting in the chat, or at least post your email to us in the chat as well, so that we can follow up with you with those next steps. Some other ideas that have come out of the chat directly to us is to reach out to our clubs on campus and student leaders. So that's going to be a very critical next step, especially for folks attending different colleges across the state and really the nation, is engaging your disability clubs, but also your ASGs and student clubs, student leaders on campus. Also, there was ideas about reaching out to the Special Olympics locally and nationally. And let's see if there were any more. Got lots of good ideas coming through. Some of them were very similar. Also, some folks were underscoring that the disabled community is made up of many non-traditional students with different intersecting identities, which I think is a really critical point to point out, particularly to the LACCD, but as we're messaging around this topic. And then also reaching out to politicians and public leaders. So thank you for that suggestion, Rachel. And I want to just give a public shout out to Mr. Grossman, as he has been very diligent and reaching out to politicians and the governor's office and other folks. But I think getting everyone else to do the same is a very important strategy.
Thank
so
you.
Paul, do you want to close us?
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much. It takes a village, and we're all in that village, and we need to have a disability diverse, ethnic diverse, sex diverse village here to win this battle. I just wanted to add one personal thing because I've heard from many people with disabilities about what a struggle college is. I'm a college dropout. I couldn't take it. It was too exhausting. I was sick of remedial classes for which I couldn't even get academic credit. But at some point, my life turned around and I graduated near the top of my law school class. I did very well at Oxford University in England, which is no easy school. And I want you all to persevere. I want you all to not give up the fight. Hang in there, fight for your rights, but also be diligent in school because I need you to be in positions of power. This notion that we're just dependent on the kindness of others, it's not good. We must be self-sufficient people with our own ability to persuade public institutions like LACCD what's right, what to do. So bless you all, and maybe I'll see you all in LA soon. Take care.
Thank you so much, Paul. And just a reminder to everyone to check your email by next Tuesday. You're going to be getting information on next steps, if not before then. So thank you again, everyone, and we will be in touch. Keep on with the good fight.
Okay. Hope you all learned a little bit of something, but thank you for coming if you did. And if you're going to watch the replay, thank you for the views. Anyone who would like to give any comments, things that I should talk about in the next meeting, I will be attending that board meeting for the LA School District for colleges and stuff. This will take away anyone who uses audiobooks. This will take away the texting tool for disabled that use the text-to-speak apps. For the blind YouTubers, this will take away your ability to use the devices that allow the comments to be read to you while people are typing in your chat. Schools, this will happen nationwide, people. And this is quite scary to some of us that go to colleges. This is quite scary for a lot of people who use these academics and as well as many other things to get through school. And it's not right. It shouldn't happen. So if there's anything anyone wants to be in the comments section of what I should speak on to help you guys and any disabled people, differently abled people, anyone that needs more help in schools, to let you succeed, please let me know in the comments section. I do read all my comments, and we are going to do more of these disabled streams, so you can also see what really goes on. And I also will be streaming the board meeting on on the 2nd of March, and I will be there. Yes, it will be Zoom, but at the same time, that's what we're having to do in this pandemic. And that's how it should be done. Well, at least for right now, at least. But if you like this particular type of content, smash that like button. Leave me a comment, and don't forget to hit that notification to know when I go live. Okay? Bye, y'all. Off to homework.